Lots of Tesla stock news today. Let's go through everything. Billionaire Ron Baron says he and his funds own $4.7 billion in Tesla shares and thinks the stock could reach up to $1,350 per share in the next 7 years. Previously, though, he mentioned $1,500 for 2030. That's still incredibly bullish, and lately the sentiment, I think, has become a lot more bullish with Morgan Stanley upgrading Tesla stock. I think we just give Ron Baron some time and he will also increase his Tesla stock price target for 2030. Tesla has now finally announced Powerwall 3 officially, and we now understand why there was some confusion between Powerwall 2 and Powerwall 3 specs. For example, the new Powerwall is actually 16% lighter than the previous Powerwall. Because we didn't have the official specs yet, it was a bit confusing to see that the energy capacity is exactly the same of both, but the new one is heavier. Well, Powerwall 2 is compatible with all major solar inverters, but Powerwall 3 features an integrated solar inverter. And if you integrate parts into the system, then of course the new system will weigh a little bit more. The new Powerwall now has 6 solar inputs, up from 4. It is now flood resistant to over 2 feet, and the backup power has been improved by 64%. Here are the specs of the old Powerwall, and the numbers in red here are the dimensions of the new Powerwall. So as you can see, the new one is a bit less narrow. It's not as tall, but it is substantially thicker. And you can really see just the difference in how thick these two are here. The Powerwall 3 is definitely quite a bit thicker. Eligible Model S and X owners can now buy upgraded higher thermal capacity brake pad kits for $750 and red caliper kits with HTC pads for $2,700. Tesla Model Y is Europe's best-selling EV in 2023. Model Y sales are almost 3 times as high as that of the second place, and this is data from January to July, including July. A refreshed Model 3 has just been spotted in the US for the first time without any covers, so the car is also definitely coming to the US. This was spotted in California, by the way. Check this out. Tesla plans to source components worth $1.7 to $1.9 billion from India, and Tesla supposedly already sourced parts worth $1 billion. This is all according to India's trade minister, who spoke at an auto conference just now. Tesla gets ready to take on Australia energy utilities in landmark move for the grid. This is a big move that Tesla is making right now. Tesla's plans for Australia are believed to be broadly based on its model in Texas, where it has launched Tesla Electric. But new applications lodged with the Australian Energy Market Operator and for a retail license with the Australian Energy Regulator signal a much broader remit, like its newly launched business in Texas and preparations for a similar move in the UK. So it's not just Australia or Texas. This is much bigger. This is going to be the UK, and then later, Tesla is going to keep expanding into new and different markets. Tesla Electric is a retail electricity provider that allows you to power your home, vehicle, and community with sustainable energy electricity from Tesla. In a recruitment drive in the UK ahead of the launch of Tesla Energy there, the company highlighted its intention to disrupt the status quo and the legacy utility business, as it has done in the global car market. That's not just some basic statement, that's a big statement. And when you hear things like that from Tesla just doesn't say that without really actually meaning it. No, Tesla means it, and Tesla is going after these huge markets. You know how, for example, it is valuable for electricity companies to have megapacks? Well, if all of the retail electricity customers have Powerwalls, then you don't need as many megapacks. So Tesla can go about it this way too. And especially in areas where you have a lot of sun, Tesla can sell these Powerwalls, and then the customers can actually make some money. If they have a solar roof and they have a lot of electricity, they just sell that electricity to the grid. The Detroit Auto Show is now here, and we know that Tesla will give rides. As you can see, Tesla is there. At the show, there's no refresh Model 3 and there's no Cybertruck either. New Cybertruck video, this one shows you how high the suspension can lift up the car. The ground clearance seems pretty good. The refresh Model 3 seemingly will have a plus version as well. It's not exactly clear what's going to be different about this one. Maybe it is going to be like the old Model 3 Standard Range Plus, basically just with a little bit more range. We'll find out pretty soon. Ford is taking a shot at Tesla. It has unveiled a new 2024 refreshed F-150, and it says with all of this new power on the F-150, you can even help a stranded Tesla driver power up their car on the side of the road. James says the dedicated robotaxi and the compact car slash SUV will share a common platform, I think. Kind of like the 3 and Y can be interchanged on the same general assembly line. It makes sense to hedge the robotaxi on compact because it reduces risk. I like it. And that has basically been confirmed in the new biography of Elon Musk. I like the idea to hedge the risk, but at first Elon did not really like that idea at all. He just wanted to go with the robotaxi platform only. But then his executives convinced him eventually to build a car with pedals and a steering wheel. I like this picture. The suspension basically lowered one car but lifted the other one. Looks pretty nice. And these Cybertrucks seem to be newly made Cybertrucks. This is crazy. About 10 Tesla vehicles, among others, burst into flames in Frankfurt, Germany just now recently. So naturally, there were questions, was this caused by a malfunctioning battery? But it was found out that the fire actually did not get to the battery. So if they did not get to the batteries could not have been the cause of the fire. But the fire was pretty bad. And now, according to an anonymous letter, the burning of the 15 Tesla vehicles in Germany was arson. A left-wing radical group has claimed responsibility for the arson of these Tesla vehicles. The letter said that presenting e-cars as a climate-friendly alternative is a cynical lie because of the origin of the components. These are just some crazy people. We have this new interesting report about the state of the US car industry, which is highly relevant to Tesla. For example, average price of a new car is now $48,400. Luxury sales up 23% year over year. Non-luxury sales are up 15% year over year. So the sales are up overall. Average price of a non-luxury car is $44,000, almost $45,000. Average selling prices for full-size pickup trucks were roughly at $65,000, which will be perfect for the Cybertruck. And overall, as inventories climb, the prices are seemingly starting to decline. We just know that Tesla likes to lead, and Tesla is taking the lead with price cuts. Hyundai is developing a Tesla-like gigapress to boost EV production and cut costs, and they are calling it hypercasting. I wish them good luck trying to figure out exactly what kind of alloy is needed here without having engineers that work on launching rockets to space that came up with new alloys. The host of Electrified, Dylan, made some really good points here. You can believe whatever you want about Elon Musk, but there are some things that are just facts. He could have taken his billions and rode off into the sunset years ago, but he chooses to sacrifice for the greater good of humanity daily. He could have leaned into the dark side and been a negative to society given his brutal childhood, but he chose to harness it and overcome it, using it as fuel. He didn't have to risk his personal fortune on numerous occasions to start companies that very few believed in, that millions are now benefiting from, for example, Tesla and SpaceX. He didn't have to buy Twitter to empty out the cesspool and put an end to censorship, fighting for free speech, but he did it anyway. He doesn't have to internalize the burden of the risks of AI to humanity, but he spends time, money, and emotional energy figuring out ways to ensure AI is safe and does not become the downfall of humanity. It seems clear to me that Elon was built for such a time as this, and despite wrestling with demons and having flaws, like all of us, to not appreciate or at least recognize the sacrifices he's made is disingenuous. And here's a new picture from Elon's biography of Elon sitting on the factory floor during the Model 3 production hell. When you need to sit down on the floor, you know things are not not going well, but Elon solved everything. Elon Musk just tweeted about this part of his biography. He said that he had already seen the virus come and go in early 2020 in China, and Tesla China had 20,000 employees and contractors, and yet no one died or had near-death experiences. While one could debate the accuracy of official statistics, Tesla certainly knew the health status of its own team. Pretty much all of my family members had the virus, and the ones that were under 50, they were all basically mostly fine, just maybe a slight shortness of breath, slightly higher temperature, some headaches, muscle soreness, nothing too serious. It's sort of like a flu, sort of, or a bad cold. I actually had it twice, and the older family members, 2 of them, had it pretty bad. Especially one of them actually had to go to the hospital. It was pretty ugly, but in the end, they were okay. My first time was, for the most part, actually all right, except for one thing. My shortness of breath was not great. I think my second or third day was actually really bad. At night, maybe around 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., I had trouble sleeping because I was having difficulty breathing. And I had to actually stand up because I had such severe shortness of breath that for a moment, for maybe 5 minutes or so, maybe up to 10 minutes, I thought maybe this is it. Maybe I need to call ambulance right now, even though it's 4 a.m. I'm going to wake everyone up. I don't know. Maybe I need to go. Maybe this is it. I thought it could be really bad. This was maybe May or April of 2020. And then the second time, which was about a year ago, that was quite all right. No shortness of breath, really. I just had slightly high temperature. And it was just a long flu, basically. I was mostly all right. I was just so tired the whole time. Elon has announced that the full X/Twitter algorithm will soon go open source. Elon explained the reason some parts have not been released yet is he and the team are somewhat embarrassed with the state of the code and want to clean it up first before going public. They have been cleaning it up now for about 9 months, so you know, it's actually pretty bad. It's serious. Makes me wonder what's happening with other social media platforms. YouTube, of course, is all fine because I'm on YouTube, and YouTube, you know, I have to praise YouTube. YouTube is perfect. Absolutely perfect. No issues here. But Facebook, Instagram, all these other ones definitely have issues. I'm going to show you something that I think is fairly bullish. And when I'm reading this to you, think about whether a CEO of GM, Ford, Stellantis, Toyota, BYD, any one of these companies would ever do anything close to this. This is a new excerpt from the biography. At one point, Levchin and his engineers were wrestling with a difficult problem involving the Oracle database they were using. Musk poked his head in the room and, even though his expertise was with Windows and not Oracle, immediately figured out the context of the conversation, gave a precise and technical answer, and walked out without waiting for confirmation. Levchin and his team went back to their Oracle manuals and looked up what Musk had described. One by one, we all said, he's right. You think, for example, the Ford CEO, the BYD CEO would ever do anything like this, really? I don't think so. Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg will be live at the Senate forum today talking about AI. Other attendees also include Bill Gates and the Google chief. Farzad says this is corruption. The US Senator Elizabeth Warren calls to investigate Elon Musk. While serving 10 years in Congress with an annual salary of $193,000, she managed to increase her net worth to $73 million. This CNBC reporter found this quote from Morgan Stanley's Adam Jonas. Investor feedback to our Tesla stock upgrade has skewed towards pushback. If limiting the scope to only making and selling cars, Tesla is a significantly overvalued equity. We think there is far more going on below the surface, and I agree with that. There's so much more going on. There has been some talk recently about Tesla potentially making a three-wheel vehicle, but let's not forget what Elon Musk said just a few years ago. He said, I can't support three-wheel vehicles. They are not safe enough. So I think it is very unlikely that Tesla would ever actually make a three-wheel vehicle as long as Elon Musk is at Tesla. There's this interesting excerpt from the new biography about Rudy Giuliani and Elon Musk. Musk and Michael Moritz went to New York to see if they could recruit Rudy Giuliani, who was just ending his tenure as mayor of New York City, to be a political fixer and guide them through the policy intricacies of being a bank. But as soon as they walked into his office, they knew it would not work. It was like walking into a mob scene, Moritz said. He was surrounded by goonish confidantes. He didn't have any idea whatsoever about Silicon Valley, but he and his henchmen were eager to line their pockets. They asked for 10% of the company, and that was the end of the meeting. This guy occupies a different planet, Elon Musk told Moritz. This is great news for us Tesla stock investors. In a new interview, Elon Musk just said that X/Twitter is seeing a significant increase in advertising, which means that Elon is less likely to sell Tesla stock to finance Twitter. This is good news for Tesla stock investors. Tesla wins as Europe readies a crackdown on Chinese EVs. NIO, XPeng stocks plunged. They didn't really plunge all that much. They did drop a little bit. But either way, this is not good news for these Chinese automakers, NIO and XPeng. Europe loves Tesla. Tesla receives 149 million euros in a new EU charging fund. I see a lot of people acting really surprised about this, but really, if you follow Elon carefully, you know that he's very careful when he speaks about China, so this is no surprise really. Walter Isaacson reports in his book that Elon Musk told Barry Weiss last year that Twitter would indeed have to be careful about the words it used regarding China because Tesla's business could be threatened.
What do you think of the stories you've seen to this point that suggest Elon even knows these issues, he struggles with it, and can't quite get out of the way of being his own worst enemy? I mean, you've said that he is the key man. He's the reason you invest in these companies, and the biggest risk is if something were to happen to him.
So I met him in 2010, and it took me 4 years before we began to invest. In 2014 to 2016 is when we bought the stock. We made about 20 times on our investment there. And then in SpaceX, we've been investing in that since 2017. And we're one of the largest investors in SpaceX.
It's not a publicly traded company,
no,
but what about your valuation?
We have about $1.7 billion invested right now. Wow. It cost us $700 million. $400 million of that is me. On Tesla, we have 17.5 million shares. 4.5 million shares is me. So we've been an investor for a long time, so I obviously believe. Mm-hmm. And initially when we invested, it was making me crazy when I was seeing some of the things that he was doing, as much as I admired him. But I do think that, and I calmed myself down, and I said, yeah, I really deserve to make a lot of money by investing in this and by staying with it. And we deserve.
I can certainly somewhat relate to Ron Baron here. For example, the latest thing would be the fight between him and Mark Zuckerberg. But then you look into Elon's childhood. He was beat up so many times. He's not afraid of physical fights. So that makes sense. In the end, it all works out for Elon.
And what I thought was that what the point that Walter made yesterday was that untethered, these things can happen, and if he was conventional, it would have never happened. So he's the guy who got us electric cars. He's the guy who got us to space. If he was a conventional person, he was on Saturday Night Live, and he said, hey, dude, you know, do you think I'm a normal person? I got you electric cars, and I'm going to take you to Mars. Seriously, am I going to be normal? And he's a very funny, engaging, smart, incredibly hardworking person. And I don't remember. So one story. When I went to a dinner in East Hampton about 2-3 weeks ago, when David Rubenstein was interviewing Walter, and they sat me at the table with Walter right next to the stage, and then David interviewed him. And then they mentioned me 3 or 4 times in that. And then afterwards he said, you know, Ron, the guy knows more than anyone else here about him. Why don't you say something? And I said, I can't say something. This is your show, and this is I'm not part of that. And
but you're here now, so what would you say?
Well, one fast story is I agree with Walter. He has to be, untethered. And then in addition to that, when he was a child, he talked about all the problems he had with his dad. And he escaped from those. He would go home, and he would read the encyclopedia. Read the encyclopedia. That was his nickname from his mom, encyclopedia. And any question he knew it. So he had a photographic memory. And what amazes me about him now is every time you ask him, how do you do that? How do you know that? How do you know what these things cost? He knows everything. It's a photographic memory. He remembers stuff. And so he's focused on cost, trying to drive cost out of everything. Everyone else tries to make as much money as they can. He's focused on his mission, long term, which is to make planet habitable, and then also to, if something bad happens, to be able to keep humanity alive.
And YouTube says you should watch this video next, but if you haven't finished watching this Elon Musk interview, watch this one first. My name is Matt Posius. Like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.